Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com, and I was wrong about the tennis photographer who walked on the court at the US Open, which created a massive stink. Now, what was I wrong about? We'll get to that in just a minute. But for those who don't know the news story that happened recently at the US Open, a photographer decided to walk on the court. Now, when I say walk on the court, they were walking where they were supposed to walk, hugging the line, trying to get to a photo position to take photographs. The only problem there is that it happened in between serves that so happened to be the player serving to win a match. And when they walked out to the court, the chair umpire said,
"Wait, please, not now. Get off the court, please."
And then awarded a first serve, which by the rules of tennis, did the right thing. It makes no sense, but it caused a 7-minute delay because one of the tennis players was absolutely flipping out. And then the photographer gets removed from the match and had their credentials stripped. Now, initially, when I did my Photo News Fix, I took the photographer's side and took their word for it that they were told by security they could go out onto the court to get into their position. I didn't want to rip on the photographer because I wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt. Then the USTA came out and said no, they were told numerous times by security that they couldn't go out, but they still went ahead and did so. And he's basically claiming, the photographer, that there's a lynching and he's using all these words that people are trying to come after him and that he's not at fault and he did nothing wrong. Now, we can have two people at fault. We can say, why didn't security stop the person if they were walking out onto the court while the match was going on or between serves? That is not the time you go out onto the court. You go out onto the court in these situations when there is a changeover and the players switch sides. There's generally 2 or 3 minutes between play, and that is the time that you could move around and go get the shot. Now, in this case, it seems like the photographer knew that they potentially might miss the end of the match, which was going to be an upset, and they wanted to make sure that they were out there to get the photo. But sometimes if you're not in the right position, you're not in the right position, you missed it. So we can say, why didn't security stop the guy? But when you look at the video of him walking out of the tunnel, you realize that the other tennis player is right there and should be in his line of sight. The photographer should be able to know that that guy is there. So it is the photographer's fault that this happened, because you need to have situational awareness. You need to know, and if you're in this situation, you can't cry, I didn't know, I didn't know. You are a professional photographer shooting a professional event with accreditation to go and photograph this. You can't feign ignorance every single time and get away with it. I've also been told that this photographer has done this before. I know people that have photographed with them. So it might be a recurring thing that this happens, where they do something and then say, I don't know, I didn't know, I didn't know, and try to get away with it. Even if you don't speak the language, if you know that the game is going on and you start to come, you just know. And for example, when I am at the Phillies game and I am going to walk past the dugouts, we don't do that during the game. We do that between innings. You can't go out between pitches. You'd be in the way and you'd get kicked out and lose your credentials. So what I do is I walk towards the dugout. I am constantly looking around left, right, up to everywhere I need to look to make sure that I'm not going to run into a player or a player isn't going to run into me. I take extra caution and extra time to make sure that when I come up to where the dugout is, that no one's about to run out, no one's about to run in, because the last thing you want to have happen is someone doesn't see you, they trip over you, they get hurt, it's the star player, and you just cost a team hundreds of millions of millions of dollars. It would be the worst feeling to do that. So you have to be very careful when you're out there and have what we call situational awareness, aka common sense. You need to have common sense. And this photographer was photographing for an agency, and I did look up their Instagram, and you can find it. You can search the person's name and look at the Instagram, and I don't see any tennis images in the recent past. I honestly don't see a ton of images being posted, and what I do see is like UN-style images that are just reminiscent of any photographer who got a credential to go take snapshots of some politician or some UN figure coming to town. And it's unfortunately not the best of the best with honor, sir work, but we're not here to litigate the work that this photographer did. Yes, their lens hood was on backwards, and that is an ultimate unprofessional move, whether they forgot to do it or they didn't. If you're walking out onto a court, I don't know, you should be prepared, and your lens hood, look, your lens hood should never be backwards unless you're not using your camera and you're traveling and it's put away. There's two things you do. You either have your lens hood on correctly or you don't have your lens hood on at all. Case in point, if you're photographing a hockey game and you're shooting through the photo hole, well, what do you not want to have happen there is you don't want to have your lens hood fall on the ice during a game, because you will feel really bad if that happens and you will end up getting kicked out. So you want to make sure that it's not even on. Even though I'm always wanting to use a lens hood, in that situation, I don't want to cause a stoppage, an injury, something where they start yelling at you and you get in trouble. At the end of the day, you need to have situational awareness. Even if security said don't go, or even if security said you can go, you shouldn't go. You have to be aware of what you're photographing, and you can't always feign ignorance and say, I didn't know, I didn't know. And even if you didn't know, you have to pay the consequences. Ignorance of the rules is not indemnification of the rules. So you have to pay the price. And if that price was losing your credentials this time around, maybe you can get them next year, maybe you can't. But that's it. You need to have situational awareness, and the photographer, at the end of the day, is the reason that this issue happened. They should have never walked out on the court, especially when the player was in their line of sight. And if they didn't see them, that's still the photographer's fault at the end of the day. Now, another important thing to mention is that when a photographer does something like this, it reflects poorly on all of the other photographers that do follow the rules. Because what happens is rules get changed because photographers do stupid things. So when there are photographers that do things that they shouldn't be doing, it reflects poorly on us, and it costs us the photos in the future because rules get changed and we can't do the things that we used to do because someone had to ruin it. So if you're a photographer in this situation or in any situation and you're working with people that aren't doing the right thing, you have to say something to them. You have to make them aware of what is going on and how, if they do this, it is going to cost us our living and it's going to cost us chances to get what we need to get, and you have to stop them. Or you basically go to the head of whoever it is and be like, look, this person is going to get us all in trouble. We need to do something about it before we all pay the price. That's where I'm going to leave it, guys. Jared, PolinFrontosPhoto.com. See ya.